So welcome. First panel of the day. It's really great to have you both. So we're here basically to talk about how you as disruptive businesses have made the transition into traditional media marketing. So maybe you can just get started by introducing yourselves a little bit and talk about what's your business model and what makes it disruptive.
Shall I start? Good. I mean, as you just heard, I'm Finn. I worked in several startup companies over the last 5 to 6 years. My most recent job, and actually the most intense that I ever had, is at Movinga. It's a German French company. We're based here in Berlin, and our vision is actually to disrupt the moving industry. Because you all know, in the moving industry, there are no brands. The biggest player in the German moving industry has a market share of 0.1%. It's a very local and very subscale business. And because all these moving companies are actually very local and very small, many of them can't afford to have a website, they can't afford to do online marketing, and also because they are local, they can't really do fleet management efficiently because they have a lot of empty rides. So Movinga is actually a platform that connects all these different moving companies into one big group of moving companies and makes sure that, first of all, customer acquisition, which is the topic of today, is very efficient for these moving companies. But secondly, also, we optimize their logistics by actually reducing their empty rides and making sure that they run very efficiently. And that's actually a pretty strong disruption of the market, because back in the days, I don't know, probably all of you moved already in the past. And the way how you normally look for a moving company is either you ask your friend, you Google it, or you go to a comparison website, and in the end you don't know, do you take the cheapest or the most expensive, what's the difference, why is the price like that? And we disrupt this whole process of actually booking the move, but then also conducting the move and making it more efficient to everyone in the market.
Hi, hello. Thank you for having me today. Thank you, Scale. I'm Guste from TransferGo. I'm head of brand and communications. And TransferGo is a low-cost international money transfer company that offers close to real-time money transfers. We use digital account-to-account business model, which basically means that we send money internationally without sending money across the borders. How does that work, and how is that a disruption? So imagine you need to send money from Germany to the UK. You pay in from your bank account into our local account here in Germany, and we pay out from our local account in the UK to your recipient's account in the UK or any recipient country. That actually allows, because money doesn't have to cross borders, that allows us to reduce the transfer cost and time up to 90% in comparison to any traditional players. So, for example, the fastest transaction we've ever made is around 70 seconds, and we're trying to push for actual real time. So at the moment, we kind of market that we can send money in half an hour just to be sure and safe, because it's only 4 years that we've been running, so we don't want to make any mistakes. At this point, however, we're pushing and we want to do a real-time money transfers as just like a global standard, so that's what we're going for.
Very cool. So I think we can probably just jump right in. Maybe you can say what markets are you active in, and what campaigns have you run so far in offline media?
Sure, I can continue. So TransferGo is available in over 45 countries. However, our target audience and our main core is Central Eastern Europeans living abroad, so UK, Germany, Scandinavia. So these are people that are economic migrants that do quite frequent transactions back home, either supporting their family or paying bills or accumulating savings for the future. It's important to understand that sometimes an average transaction can be up to 20% of the monthly income on the recipient's end, and that's where the real value of our company kind of comes in. And we're dealing with a very sensitive thing, which is money. And what we realize, especially with the market segment that we deal with, what is very, very important is education and trust building. So these are two main things why we actually choose out-of-home campaigns and why we choose traditional media, because our product is already not traditional. And so we have to approach people the most traditional way possible to kind of make them understand us and give them that extra support that they need. So that's why, for example, in Lithuania, once we launched our first out-of-home campaign called Money Travels Freely, it was very much focused on the community and understanding the people. Most of the co-founders all of the co-founders actually of the company, and quite a few people in the company are Lithuanian. So we understood where the people are coming from. We understood what is the main kind of touch point, what they like, what is funny for them, what is a little bit too much. And that's why, but we also understood that we have to be there. We have to give a face to the company that's only online and that's only digital. That's why we chose to go out there, do all these billboards, bring people to them and make them understand. So briefly about the actual campaign, just because I don't have slides, so I can't really show it to you. But we took people from the currency, from our money. Well, at the time we had litas, now we have euros. But we had famous, obviously, historic figures on our banknotes. We took these people and put them into kind of traveling background. So imagine some, for example, a guy who wrote Lithuanian anthem. He was in England, close to Buckingham Palace, kind of traveling. So our kind of core focus of that was to show that money can travel freely, and that put these people and make them kind of traveling heroes, and that you can travel, we can travel, money can travel freely as well. And we put these billboards in airports, which was, I think, very important as well, just to kind of find that connection with people going abroad. And even, let's say, they live in the country, maybe they don't even know they're going to have a problem of money transfers just yet. However, it's very important to follow the touch points and to kind of the whole consumer journey. So if they know about us from just leaving Lithuania, for example, they go to whatever, Germany, they live here, and they all of a sudden need to send money, and they most likely, then you can do Facebook, retargeting, and all kinds of things. They're most likely going to remember you. So.
Cool. So, I mean, I'm a very big fan of traditional media, I have to say. I mean, first in my startup, back in the days when I started The Iconic, the reason why we started with offline or traditional media was actually because we got very big growth targets from our investors, and after probably 3 months running, we figured out that Australia is a country where no one actually shops clothing online. Everyone goes to the retail store, buys clothing there, and one of the things that we figured out was the search volume on Google for people who look for shop clothing online was not big enough to actually reach our actually targets that we had in our business plan at all. So after a week of panicking, we figured out, well, maybe that means we need to educate the market about that it's possible to shop online. And the thing is, what I really love about traditional media, because it's consumed by everyone, not only by digital people, you actually can educate people. And we immediately went out with an out-of-home campaign. And actually, I have to say, I haven't tried it in Germany yet, but one of the channels in Australia that really made us big was radio. And also radio was a very interesting channel to compare cities to each other. Like, where do you perform better, where do you perform less? Then, of course, when I went to Epic Companies, it's a daughter company. It was a daughter company of ProSieben Sat.1. I mean, TV was kind of the default that we did. So we did a lot of TV there. Actually, not much else in terms of traditional media. And now at Movinga is actually the most interesting question. So we are in France and Germany, and one of the things about our target group is that our target group is people who move. The problem with that target group is that everyone in Germany moves. You just don't know when they move. So it means you can't just say oh, I'm targeting women with higher income between 25 and 30 because that doesn't make them more likely to move than other people. So the thing is, we know that 9 million people in Germany move every year, but it's really hard to target them. Yes, maybe they move before they start a new job, maybe they move when they have kids, or when they marry, or when they go into a relationship, or when they leave a relationship, but it's really hard to target. So we're really wondering, how is it possible actually to bring Movinga as a brand to life? And we just started 3 days ago with a big campaign all over Germany with Ralf Möller, the German actor who was actually playing in Gladiator. And the idea behind that is not performance marketing, because we don't believe that we can convince anyone who doesn't want to move only because he sees a great advertising with us. Not like The Iconic, when you see a nice jumper, you just buy it. So the idea is really to raise an awareness that there is a brand right now in a space where there hasn't been ever any brand. So that's actually the objective number one. And then, as you can imagine, I guess all of you moved already in your life. It's all about trust. It's really about booking a move online, paying 2,000 euros for the move for a company you don't know and you don't have any experience in is a pretty tough step to do. So everything that we figured out from our customers was about trust. I really need to trust that this is a legit company. It's really trust that it's a quality, that it's a company that actually doesn't rip me off, that's actually really existing or not just a scam that's on the internet. And that's the reason why we decided to do a brand campaign, even though the performance of that campaign, our expectations is not too high, but it really should enforce, first of all, our trusted image, because Ralf Möller is a very trusted person in Germany. More than 80% of the people over 30 know him. But also actually to bring the brand out there and make people aware that there is a way of actually moving online these days. And this is again all about educating the customer.
That's really interesting because I heard both of you sort of say the word trust and trust, and I think that's very interesting for disruptive business models, for people to trust that this is legitimate, that this is something that works out. So I'm going to jump to this question. How do you actually decide on or find a strategy for combining multiple goals in one campaign? So if you say, okay, trust is very important, but also educating the market is very important, driving sales is still important because we're in a very high growth phase. How do you sort of balance this? And like, are there different phases in your growth where you say, okay, this is important first, this is important first, this is important first, and how do you kind of make that decision?
So with our current campaign, I mean, I don't know how many people saw the Movinga TV ad already. Does any one of you saw it? 1, 2, 3, 5. Yeah, not many of you, okay. Well, it's just 2 days old, it's fine. So what we tried to do in this TV ad is actually to really combine the elements. So we had like a strong brand elements. We actually spent a bit of money on the TV spot. We had like a castle outside Berlin. It's called the Movinga Academy. We had Ralf Möller as a testimonial. And it was actually a spot that really like ticks all the boxes in terms of brand, like trust and like legitimacy and so on. But also, and I mean, we worked with an agency who's really like familiar with all the performance parts of the business. But it's also like an ad where really the USPs are very clear, where the website is in the whole time. And actually, we believe that you can combine brand and performance if you do it the right way. And I think, to be honest, for us, I would say our objective is probably 60%, 70% brand and 30 to 40% performance. And we already see a lot of traffic on the website based on that campaign. However, we don't expect, as I said, people to start booking a move if they don't need to move. So that's something where we probably measure the things rather long term. And for us, it's really, in terms of brand, it's raising awareness and increasing the trust. And then if someone books directly because he just needs to move, I mean, the better.
How about for you
Yes,
guys?
for us it's the same but yet different, because basically we kind of have this corridor focus in our company. So for example, what do I mean by corridor? UK to Lithuania, or Lithuania to everywhere, or Poland to everywhere. So we focus on the communities and on particular corridor, and we are at kind of different stages in different markets. So depending on that, I guess our mediums also change. So for example, in Romania, we were just last week, and what we learned just by being there and participating in a press conference, that it's our new market, and it's very much still lacking in education. People are dealing still with cash, and we all so cool and think we're so disruptive and thinking about like all the possible apps, and we all use Apple Pay, and it's all great. And you go there and you meet your customers, and they still say like, oh, in our country it actually costs money to cash out from just like a ATM. That's where you see that that's quite different problems that they have than maybe we do. And that's where like a differentiation comes in. So that's why we know that in the new markets, we always have to educate people first and build that trust. For example, in Lithuania, since we've been going there since very beginning, we now know that we can just maybe be more creative in some ways. We can be a little bit more edgy. We can maybe be more interesting than, let's say, in Romania, where we just have to be fairly basic, simple, understandable, just for that kind of educational part and trust building.
And in terms of sort of how you select the right media mix for either if you're starting out in a new market, how do you go about kind of figuring out what is the shape of this market, like what are kind of the idiosyncrasies of it, and how do you then adapt the media selection to this?
So for us, that's why we also have people working on specific corridors. So these are the people that speak the language. These are the people that understand the communities, understand the consumers, and we go into communities first. So as a playbook, I think first step for us is always actually offline. It's always going and participating in community events, doing some kind of like PR stunts or something that that particular community relate to. So for example, we're organizing this party bus for Romanians, and that would never fly with Lithuanians, but we know that that's something that Romanians will appreciate, and it usually works out. But that's why you have to have these people that understand. That's why our team is very international and multicultural, to actually facilitate that understanding and being able to build the trust.
Yeah, I mean, for us, if we think about Movinga, I think there's two things. I mean, I think TV is very broad, and I'm really curious to see the first results, to see if some channels and some age groups are working better than others. So we go there with a really like broad strategy in, just to see if we see some patterns. In terms of out of home, we actually like looked at which postcodes in Germany are moving more frequently than other postcodes. So I don't know if you know, but in Berlin Mitte, actually the whole population changes every 2 years, because there's so many people are moving in and out that actually like it's like a huge fluctuation. So that's the reason why Mitte, for example, is a very good example where we can start doing that. Another thing why we chose out of home is actually because, for example, you can be very local in a city like Frankfurt. You have a lot of expats coming in and coming out. They go there for 1 year with a bank or with a other company, and then they go back to their home country. So that's a big market for moving as well. So that's actually what our ideas are in moving for offline. Also, what we're trying is actually to doing out of home around DIY markets like Hellweg or Obi or Hornbach or like whatever they're called, because we know that actually 60% of the people who want to move go to the tour market before they move, and only 40% go afterwards. So we think that could be like an interesting thing as well to actually be positioned. It was different at the Iconic, because at the Iconic, one of the interesting things is that the Australians in summer don't like to be inside. So in Australia in summer, the TV usage goes down to almost zero, and the pedestrian areas in the shopping malls are really like there's no one in there. It's almost like The Walking Dead is like completely like empty. So we were wondering like how can we benefit with the Iconic from that trend that everyone is outside on the beach and somewhere in the park in summer, and still make sure that the people actually shop with us. And we did a very interesting campaign. We said like shop how you want. And that's really was a strong out-of-home campaign. We were like in every city lights. We actually had like flyers around the beach. And that was something that I thought was very beautiful, because suddenly people start realizing that when they need to buy a jumper or jeans, they don't need to go to the store on a Saturday and spend the sunny day in the shopping mall, but they can just be on the beach and like shop on the phone and actually realize that they actually can shop wherever they are. And that was something where I think out-of-home media is still like superior to all of the other media, because that's something where you really can educate customers who are in a certain location about what they can do right now. That was pretty good.
Cool. I have a question that's probably really useful to some of the startups out in the audience that are a bit younger than you guys. When you think back to when you first started working with traditional media, how did you know that it was kind of time to go from like purely online to really investing in this? Because obviously for younger startups, it's a lot of money. So when did you know it was right, and sort of what advice could you give the startups for how they need to prepare for sort of a bigger traditional media, maybe an out-of-home campaign?
I mean, what I actually figured out at the Iconic, the first time we did traditional media was really, as I mentioned in the beginning, we saw that we reached like a certain threshold with the pure online marketing. We couldn't grow any further because all the pull channels, there was just not enough search volume for us. So the first channel that we really did, because it was the fastest, actually my preference would have been TV, but then the whole thing about producing the TV spot, going on air, it's even more bureaucratic in Australia than it is in Germany. And the thing that I really was almost out of an emergency was radio. So the only thing that we really could start from one day to the other was radio. And that was really interesting because I never really believed in radio as a channel, especially because, you know, always the saying, the further you're away from your internet device, the less the performance will be. So for example, radio you hear in the car, like no one is like driving a car and then he listens to a radio spot and he types in with his right hand in his phone like the URL. I think it's not happening. Maybe some of you do, but I hope you didn't have accidents yet. But that's actually something that I never believed in. And then we had like this one cool radio station in Australia who said like, look, let's try it and let's only do it in Sydney and not do it in Melbourne. Both cities have the same social demographics, both cities have the same size. And they said only for every additional order you do in Sydney compared to Melbourne, we charge you $50. And we thought that's an amazing deal because at the end of the day, we could actually start in one city, which was a very low budget, and we could test this one city against the other city, and we can not only have a variable payment scheme for that trial, but we can also really see how much is radio performing if you actually really keep everything stable in both cities, but only ramp up radio. And it was proven that actually radio was a very, very good measurement for us, and we started with only a budget of 20,000 euros for a month, which is pretty much every citizen in Sydney listening to our radio ad 5 times a day. So that was really bringing up our brand awareness in Sydney, and we also saw that the search volume on Google in Sydney went up like crazy for fashion online, for the iconic, for shopping online, clothing online, shoes online. And that was something that was possible with a very small budget. And when we saw that there was a positive return on investment, we rolled out radio over the whole country, and I think it was one of the best things we ever did in the early stage.
Yeah, interesting, because small budgets are very different for different companies. I must say that's probably our, monthly, not even budget for everything we do. So that's why I can definitely give some advice for even smaller startups. I think, obviously, one thing that I definitely agree is testing. That's what we always focus on as well. So you do small-scale tests, trying to prove some kind of, whatever KPIs you had. If that, works out, then you optimize it and try to do it more. That's the regular way. I think it works with online and offline as well. We still are not on TV because we don't have budgets for that. However, we are on TV. So the way we do it, sometimes these kind of things, it's partnerships. And that's actually, depends obviously on your business and what the company does and all. For example, we work with charities and we allow people to donate from abroad for free via our service. And then charities, they are very good at making obviously they want to, let's say, put their own advertisement, but they always also want people to donate, and that's why we kind of come in their ads. It's maybe you can say it's a little bit sneaky way of doing it, but it's also a very smart way of doing it. So if there's something that you can maybe partner with, or you can think of some kind of value, obviously it should be a valuable partnership for both sides. Maybe that way you can end up on TV. We've done some radio as well. We've done some radio, but we did more of a competition on the radio. That's why it was a little bit more, in a way, kind of, you could track it because you can give people using certain codes and all of those kind of things. But yet again, we try all of these things. I guess we're kind of lucky we can try them in home markets. So, for example, Poland or Romania and Lithuania, which tends to be cheaper than, I'm sure, Germany and definitely the UK. So if we know that it works there, then we have in a plan one day we're going to do somewhere else. But testing these kind of things is definitely worthwhile, and then optimizing it and trying to, sometimes even playing just, we're a small the startup kind of card actually works as well with negotiations. So just, be brave.
That's good advice. So let's get a little bit more concrete. So for startups who are really doing this for the very first time, what do you have to do to prepare things from the business side? So what do you have to do to prepare, for example, for an uptick in visitors to a website? And what are some big pitfalls if you're really doing it for the first time? What can the younger startups in the audience avoid if they know this one piece of advice?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, I think it's really, and when I was at Epic Companies, that was pretty obvious. If you really do big scale traditional media, you really need to know your target group. I mean, if you're advertising a very niche product, of course TV will not give you any uplift, because at the end of the day, you lose 95% of the focus by doing something like that, and only 5% of the people who are watching the TV spot are actually interested in the product. It sounds pretty obvious and straightforward, but believe me, that's the reason why most of the startups who try TV are actually failing, because they're actually not aware of what the target group really is and how they need to, and what they expect from the campaign. That's the next thing. It's really, what do they expect? Do they expect brand awareness? Do they expect performance? I think it's really important, before you actually even think about going to traditional media, it's really, who do you want to reach? And what is your expected result from that media? And when you then do your budget, and maybe it's just 2,000 euros, 5,000 euros, maybe it's it was with us, 20,000 euros. It's really about how can I best reach that target group, and how do I expect to get the best results? So if you have the money, I always love to do testing. So the next thing I want to do with Movinga is actually have 4 different cities. Like in Germany, I think we just did the research recently. There are like 4 cities that are approximately similar in terms of social demographics. It's Bremen, it's Dortmund, it's Dresden, and it's Hanover. And what I want to do is like to try with the same budget, different advertising channels, and really see which city is performing against an index the best out of these, and really see like, okay, what's the return on investment of these different media channels. However, the problem with that is that you can only do if you have bigger budgets and if you have some money to play around with. If you have low budgets, I would really think like, where do I meet my target group? Where can I expect the best result? And it's really depending on your business model, which channel is best for you. What I just tried and what I actually was surprisingly positively surprised with is like flyering into mailboxes, like really giving voucher codes on a flyer, putting it in a mailbox, and put it like in a whole city area like Prenzlauer Berg, and put it in every mailbox and see how many people convert on your website. That's actually something you can do for already like 1,000 or 2,000 euros, and you see immediate results. And that's something that I would recommend to a lot of people. However, what you really need to do in terms of offline really depends a lot on your budget and your business model.
Yeah, I definitely agree, actually, with most of the points, apart from the fact that flyering didn't work for us. So it definitely depends, because our business is very much, it's on-demand business. We can't make people, I guess as you can't make people move, we can't make people send money if they don't need to send money. It's not selling chocolate or anything like that. So it definitely is very important to understand the target audience, and it's very, very important to understand to be relevant to them. So right timing is also very important, and right places. So for example, for us, airports work better than billboarding in general somewhere in the city. We know that end of the month type of like, if we can focus our, all the resources we have for like end of the month, we know that that's where, let's say, all the paychecks come in, that's where people do send money, that's how our business model is built for these kind of people. And so timing is another thing that you really should think about, especially if you have limited resources. So if you can afford a week on the radio, it should be that week when you know that most likely a lot of people are going to convert, rather than, maybe for us, let's say not the first week of the month, but the last week of the month. So if you have that, so target audience, of course, but then also timing, that definitely something that we try to utilize.
Maybe one more tip. If you're constrained on budget and you don't know yet the impact of your traditional media spends, don't do it around Christmas. Because around Christmas, like in my opinion, November, December is always the worst month for doing traditional media, because all of the FMCG companies, all big companies are actually like screaming towards the customer. First of all, they spend a lot of money, which means the media will get more expensive during that time. And secondly, like the customer is completely overwhelmed with all the different messages he gets over the day. So summer, and also TV is much cheaper in summer, is always much better in terms of trying these things than November, December. January is a good month as well, because then the Christmas time is over. All the FMCG companies do a break for 1 or 2 months in terms of their advertising. But really, like, it's really hard to, if you have a limited budget, it's really hard to actually make a big message to the market if you're together with like 1,000 other companies that push during these months.
All right, so before I open it up for general questions, I have one more. So audience, start thinking about what you want to ask. But the final question from me is, where are you guys going next? So like, what media have you not tried that you say, this is kind of where we aspire to, this is the kind of campaign we want to do, and like maybe also a hint into like which markets you're planning on moving into next?
So for us, I guess still that TV is a little dream of mine, at least. I really hope one day we can try something there, because in the end of the day, we haven't tested properly yet. So I wouldn't even know if it necessarily works for us or not, but I definitely would be willing to try, because it is still one of the major mediums to reach out to the huge audiences. As a business, we are growing all the time. We're opening new corridors all the time. So now with the Brexit and all, not my favorite word, but that happened. So we actually have to really very much focus on other senders markets, so like Germany or Scandinavia and all, like kind of moving a little bit away maybe from the UK, just thinking maybe the growth is not going to be as we planned before. Therefore, like, we're opening new corridors every day, as I mentioned. We just opened India and Philippines and Ukraine, but from the marketing perspective, we're probably going to be focusing so much more on marketing in Germany and Scandinavia. So here we come. Wait for our, hopefully, TV ads or something.
Yeah, I mean, for me, as I said, moving is a very specific market. And the thing is, what I like about Movinga, but what also makes it very difficult, is that we are a pioneer in that market. No moving company ever has done a large-scale advertising campaign to actually reach people, because, as I said in the beginning, it's all very small, local, sub-scale companies. So sometimes I feel a bit like a kid who presses a lot of different buttons and see what happens. And I think, to be honest, we continue to do like that. With the test that I just mentioned, we will try TV. But also what I love to try is, for example, yellow pages, because what I hear is always that traditionally most of the people get their moving companies from the yellow pages. So I didn't see any yellow pages for the last 10 years, but maybe there's something in it that I don't know about. So now I think it's really, for us, it's about testing. It's really what I mentioned before. In these 4 different cities that we have, in one we'll do flyering, in one we'll do radio, in one we'll do out of home, and the 4th one, maybe we do yellow pages, maybe we do something else, but really want to test them and see what works best and then roll it out to Germany, and we do the same in France and the other countries that we will go to. So, I mean, for us, it's really about testing and really testing, and see which channels are actually best resonating with our target group.